Welcome back, fifth graders. All right, today we are going to be talking about the metric system. Up in your notes, go ahead and title it Chapter 11. We're going to be doing lessons 10, 11, and 12, which is length, weight, and capacity. We're going to put them all into one big lesson today. Our goal when we get done, our objective, I will be able to convert metric units of length, weight, and capacity. So it's a little bit different than our customary units of conversion. Metric is much simpler. That's why I am putting them all into one lesson, length, weight, and capacity. So let's first put down the vocabulary of a metric system. It is a decimal system of measurement. To convert metric units, multiply or divide by powers of 10. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So let's take a look at some of these that we're more familiar with and maybe some of the metric system that we're a little unfamiliar with. So you see there, excuse me, we have the butter in the top left-hand corner there of that picture. So we have what we're used to, a pound of butter. Well, a pound of butter you can see is a lot less than a kilogram of butter. And these two are very close to one another. So a liter of milk is about like a quart. Remember, a quart is that tall, skinny milk container that we've all, I'm sure, used. So that's capacity. Now let's take a look at length. So we have a foot, an inch, right? That's an inch is 12 in a foot, and a yard is 3 feet, if you remember. Now, a meter, that kind of gives you an idea as a yardstick, is a little bit shorter than a meter stick. Okay? And we're going to talk about all those words that may look a little unfamiliar to you. One thing we have talked about specifically in science is temperature. Now, we're not going to do that today in math, but I just think you need to know difference between Celsius, that's metric system, and Fahrenheit, that's what we use in the customary system that we use. Okay, so a couple things to notice. Notice water freezes. Celsius at 0, 32 degrees for our Fahrenheit system. The other one is when water boils. It's 100 degrees in metric, 212 in customary. So everything is base 10. 10 are 0, 100 in metric. It's much simpler, in my opinion, to use than the customary system that we've all grown accustomed to. All right, so let's first take a look at, we're going to be talking about three things. The first thing I want to take a look at is grams. So that's weight. So I'll kind of give you an idea of what a gram is and what a kilogram is. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these examples here. So here's an example. So we have a lemon here on this scale. That is about 10 grams. Well, what does 10 grams look like? Well, here in our definition it says a paper clip, and we all know what a paper clip feels like. That's about a gram, right? And a book, a heavy book, as they underline. A heavy book. That's about a kilogram. So you kind of have an idea of what a kilogram thinks. So a heavy book, think like a dictionary that you would pick up. That would be about a kilogram. A paper clip, that's about a gram. So when we say something is 200 grams, you know, that's like 200 paper clips, right? It's less than a book. Okay? So just kind of give you an idea as far as how much does that really, really weigh. All right, let's talk about capacity now. Liters, I think that's something that all of you are pretty familiar with, particularly when you take a look at these sodas here. So you have these half a liter, you have a liter, and a 2-liter bottles that I think you probably all have seen in the store and probably have at home right now to kind of give you an idea of what a liter is and a 2-liter bottle. I think we're all pretty familiar with that. Here's another example. So it says here that a milliliter, that is like a few eyedroppers, kind of like what we do in science. Whereas a liter, that is like a sports bottle is about a liter or so. Okay? So here again is another American comparison. So here is a gallon container. So a gallon container, you can see right here, is almost, not quite, 4 liters. So you can see that number 3.79, not quite 4 liters. And here's another comparison. So 1 quart is almost 1 liter. Quart and liter are very close to one another. They're just not quite exact. All right. So let's take a look at, get rid of my writing there. Let's go ahead and take a look at length now. I think you guys will be pretty familiar with these. So a length, we are talking about, I want to go to the bottom right here. So I think this gives you a pretty good idea of length. So a millimeter, and you can barely see that. That's like if you turned a dime sideways and looked at the width of a dime. That's what that is. So here's our dime. Now if you turned it sideways and went from one side of the dime to the other, that would be about a centimeter, to kind of give you an idea. So a millimeter is like the thickness of a dime. Centimeter is how big it is across. A meter, that's like about the size of a baseball bat. And then a kilometer, that's like going about 10 times back and forth across the football field. So that's quite a bit. So those are kind of some of the different metric lengths. Here we have a meter stick. Here we have a centimeter. Centimeter, I always think of it as about take your pinky and look across your fingernail of your pinky. That's about a centimeter, something like that. Okay? Here it is on an actual meter stick. So you can see each one of these little lines here. That's a millimeter. And each one of these lines from the numbers, that's a centimeter. Okay? So there's 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. There's 100 centimeters in 1 meter. It's 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the vocabulary. I'd like you to write this in your notes if you would, this purple chart. I've circled kilo, I've circled base unit, which means this. This is what we're going to be talking about today, centi and milli. I circled those because those are the most commonly used measurements in metric. Doesn't mean deci and deca and hecto are not used. They're just not used nearly as much. So when you hear a measurement, normally it'll have those prefixes. And that's exactly what they are. There should be a little line to the right of those because those are prefixes. Just like we would have a prefix in a word, those are prefixes. These are our measures, depending on whether we're talking about length or capacity or weight. Okay? So a kilometer, a centimeter, a millimeter, those are just the prefix that tells us what the measurement is. Just like for liter, just like for gram, just like for meter, they're all the same. So if you remember back, I put this graphic that we just had talking about grams. So we're talking about grams, that's the unit. And then we got kilogram, that kilo, right? It refers up to this. Now, let's talk about the math of these prefixes and how do they affect things. So, our base unit, depending on what we're talking about, meter, liter, gram. So, as we go left to right, the units get larger. So, think about that. So, a book we know is much larger than a paper clip. So, remember this book, that's about a kilogram. This paper clip here, that's about a base unit, okay? So when we think about it, everything to the left there, those are bigger units. So when we're doing our fractions, for example, we have 1 kilogram. That is the same as 1,000 grams. Okay? These are the bigger units down here. These are bigger. and these are smaller. So when we're writing our equivalent fractions, let's make another one. I'll go ahead and use meters, for example. Okay, so if I have 1 millimeter, or I don't want to write 1, change my mind there. If I have millimeters and I'm changing that to meters, let's say, well, there's 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. Well, how did you get 1,000, Mr. Day? Well, this is kind of how it works. So each one of these arrows you see, we are multiplying by 10, multiplying by 10, multiplying by 10. So if I'm going from milli to our base unit, that's 10. That's 10 times 10 or 100. That's 100 times 10 or 1,000. So you remember way back when we talked about these base 10 numbers, 10, 100, 1,000, just really adding a 0 to the numbers each time I go from one of those boxes to the other box. Smaller to bigger, and as I go back and forth, we're going to be using this as our guide as to how to make these equivalent fractions. Just like we did with our customary units, we're going to be making these equivalent fractions to change the different denominations of the meter and the liter and the gram, depending on the prefix change. Okay, so what does this look like when we're doing our work? Well, you'll notice we have those exactly same 7 steps that we had before converting units. This time we're going to be converting metric units. So, first thing we do, just like we did before, we're going to take our 700, what are we doing, centimeters, setting it over 1. And then I'm going to multiply that, just like I did before. I'm going to be multiplying by a fraction that's equal to 1. I look here, and I see this is centimeters, so I know I need to put centimeters on the bottom. I look here to see what I need to find out. That's meters. Okay? So that's step 1. That is step 2. That is step 3. Now I got to figure out, now I got to think about this. All right, my conversion chart. So if I go back to that previous chart, and I think, all right, I know if I have 1 meter, that is equal to 10. 10 times 10 is 100. That's 100 centimeters. 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. Now we can go ahead and just do the math. Centimeters cancel. So that leaves me, and I'm going to write it underneath because I've run out of room there. That leaves me with 700. I didn't write that very well. There we go. 700 divided by 100. And our answer is, it's meters, not centimeters. Mr. Day, I'll get it together here. So if you remember way back when we divided by tens and we divided by hundreds, and we can simply cancel these, which really leaves us 7 divided by 1. What's 7 divided by 1? Of course, that's 7 meters. Okay? So the steps are very similar to the way we did it before. We're taking our value, we're multiplying it by a number that is equal to 1. That number that's 1 just happens to be a fraction where we are going to be simplifying the 1 value and making it for our unknown value that we want to find out. All right, here's another example for you to put in your notes. So again, we're going to follow those same steps, those same guidelines that I've been using. So 8,500 millimeters. I set that over 1. I'm going to multiply that by millimeters. And then I'm going to look for my destination. That's meters. Now I got to think. I got to ask myself, all right, so how many millimeters are in a meter? So I know there are 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. Okay, so that means I can take my other colored pen here. Millimeters cancel. And that leaves me with, and I'll just write it right down here, so that leaves me with 8,500 divided by 1,000. And my answer is going to be meters. So if I'm dividing it by 1,000, that leaves me with 85 divided by 10. And 85 divided by 10, I know is 8 5/10, and that still follows me, meters. All right, let's try another one. So now we have 509 thousandths of a kilometer, changing that to meters. If you think you can do it, go ahead and pause the video, watch it, or finish your problem, and then come back and watch the answer. All right, so here's the answer. How do we go about solving this? So we have 509 thousandths. 509 thousandths. Oh, that's kilometers. Notice I'm not setting it over 1 because it's a decimal. And we are going to put that over kilometers, over meters. And there are, 1,000 meters into 1 kilometer. All right, let's go ahead and solve it now. So kilometers cancel, and thousands cancel, which leaves us 509 meters. Done. Did you get that one right? That one might have been a little tricky because of the decimal. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Now we're dealing with gram. We're dealing with weight. It doesn't really matter what we're dealing with, whether it's liter, meter, or gram. The transition from one to the other is going to be exactly the same. So here we have 9 kilograms. We need to change that into grams. Pause the video, try to solve it, and then come back for the solution, if you would, please. Here's your solution. So if I have 9 kilograms, again, I set that over 1. I multiply this by kilograms. I look and see what I need to find. I need to find grams. And then I need to think, all right, so how many grams are in a kilogram? Well, I know there are 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. Now let's cancel. Kilograms cancel. Now I'm just multiplying. 9 times 1,000. I don't have to worry about it. I'm just dividing it by 1, right? So 9 thousandths is 9,000 grams. Okay? Hopefully you got that one right. Let's go on to the next problem. Actually, I'm going to skip that one. I want to do this one. All right. 6 21/100ths liter, changing that to milliliters. Go ahead and solve that, if you would. Pause the video and then come back for the solution. All right, so let's take a look at this solution. We have 621/100ths. And that is a liter, which we are multiplying by liters, and we're multiplying by milliliters. All right, so how many milliliters are in a liter? It's 1,000, because it's milli, in 1 liter. All right, let's go ahead and simplify now. I can simplify the liters. I can simplify the 100, which is going to take away 2 of these zeros, right? Because there's 2 zeros here that I'm canceling. That means I can take away 2 zeros here. All right, so we've simplified all that. All we have is 1s on the bottom. So let's go ahead and multiply. I have 621 here times 10. 621 times 10 is 6,210, and I can't fit it, so I'm going to write it down below, milliliters. Did you get that? I hope so. All right, here's a problem for you to try. Go ahead and see if you can solve this. on your own and then come back for the solution if you would, please. All right, so this says 1 serving of punch is 250 milliliters. Well, 10 servings fit in a 2-liter bowl. All right, well, I guess the first thing I have to figure out is what is 10 servings of 250 milliliters going to be? So I need to take the 250 milliliters and multiply that by 10. Which again, if you remember when we multiplied by base 10s, which means if I'm multiplying by 10, I'm really just going to be adding a 0 here, which is equal to 2,500 milliliters, right? Now it's 2,500 milliliters going to be equal to, well, I know that I can figure out 2 liters. Set that over 1, multiply that by a liter, milliliter. I know there's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. Those cancel, which means it is 2,000 milliliters. Well, those are the punches, and that is the bowl. So is it going to fit? 1 serving of punch is 250 milliliters. 10 servings fit. So are these 10 servings going to fit in there? No, they're not, because this number is larger, right? They will not all fit in there at one time. It'll be spilling out over the top of the bowl, and we'll have a mess. And nobody wants spilt punch. That's just not good for anyone. All right. Let's take a look at our final problem here. We got a problem. We're going on a trip. We have luggage, and the airline only allowed so much mass of luggage. Can we fly with this luggage? Pause the video, solve the problem, and then come back for your solutions, please. All right, so our luggage. It weighs 21,530 grams. The airline will only allow 23 kilograms. Can we fly with it? Well, let's figure this out. So let's see if we can change. We can either change grams to kilograms or we can change kilograms to grams. It doesn't really matter which way you do it. You're then going to be comparing the other numbers. Let's just go ahead and take that first number. So we got 21,530 grams. Set that over 1. And I am multiplying grams. And here I am doing kilograms. So how many grams are in a kilogram? Kilo, meaning 1,000. 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. Now let's do the math. So we get. So grams cancel, which leaves us kilograms. That leaves us 2,130 divided by 1,000. So those zeros cancel, which is going to leave 2. So that decimal is going to go there. So we got 21.53 kilograms. And now we got to compare. The airline, will it allow that luggage? Well, if this is how much his luggage is, and that's how much the airline allows, is he going to be able to fly with this luggage? Yes, he is going to be able to. Why? Because his luggage is less than what the airline demands. So yes, he can go on his trip to Hawaii and have a wonderful time with all of his luggage. All right, well, let's think about what we learned today. Well, we talked about metric system. The length, the capacity, I say length, weight, the capacity, and how to convert those kilos and meters and grams and liters into centis and millis. How to convert those by multiplying by an equivalent fraction of 1. being able to change from milliliter to liter, from kilograms to grams, back and forth. All right, have a wonderful day, guys. See you on the other side.